Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This one is on the Pythagorean theorem, and this is in the 8th grade book 9.2. So unit, we're going to write 8th 9.2 up there at the top. Our learning intention is to understand the Pythagorean theorem. So I'll know I'm successful when I can explain the Pythagorean theorem, when I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find unknown side lengths of triangles, and when I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find distance between points in a coordinate plane. Okay, so the Pythagorean theorem is for finding side lengths in a right triangle. Okay, so if you need to find the lengths of a side in a right triangle, this is the theorem that you want to use. And a theorem is just a rule in mathematics. So when you hear that word theorem, don't get confused. It just means rule. Okay, so this is Pythagoras. This is my great description of him. He was a Greek philosopher and a mathematician, and he proved one of the most famous rules in mathematics, and that was essentially named after him, the Pythagorean theorem. So here's some things to show you. According to the Pythagorean theorem, for all right angles, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so A is the length of a leg. So we'll just put length of leg. B is also a length of a leg. Whoops. And C is the length of, oh my goodness gracious, of hypotenuse. So we have leg 1, leg 2, or leg A, leg B, and C is our hypotenuse. So I have a little broken up example for you. So if this side is 3 squared, so 3 times 3 is 9. So it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And then this side is 4 squared. Well, 4 squared is 16. I know that this side plus this side equals this side. So now I'm going to take these squares plus these squares and put them all in together, and they make 5 squared, because I have, if I count my darker squares, 4, 8, 12, 16, I have 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then here's my lighter squares, 3, 6, 9. I put all of those together, and it made a 5 by 5 square, so 5 squared. So this just gives you a different visual of what that looks like when we add those two together. That's how it created the 5 squared. Okay, so you see that here too. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. So 9 plus 16 equals 25. So let's look down here a little bit further. So here's a little bit more. If we look at this right triangle, we have leg A, leg B, and hypotenuse C. So the legs are the two sides that form a right angle. So go ahead and write right in that little box right there. So remember, this square here is a right triangle, or tells us it's a right angle. Right? So this is the hypotenuse, and this side is always opposite of the right angle. So I'm always going to be able to make an arrow and point straight to the hypotenuse from the right angle. So in a right triangle, the legs are the shorter sides, and the hypotenuse is always the longest side. Okay, so if we're talking about right triangles, that's not the case in every type of triangle, but in right triangles, we can say for certain that the legs are the shorter sides and the hypotenuse is always going to be that longer side. So just from what we've looked at here, tell me, what do you notice and what do you wonder? Okay, so I want you to just take a minute. Yes, I do want you to really think about your learning, so I do want you to give me something. Okay, so what do you notice? What do you wonder? Do that quickly and then move on with me. Okay, I'll flip the page. So now we say if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then the triangle is a right angle. Okay, so there's some things that we need to know. So first, step 1, you're going to circle the hypotenuse, which is the biggest number. Okay. Step 2, does the leg squared equal the hypotenuse squared? And then step 3, decide if it is a right triangle. Okay, so those are some steps we need to follow to figure out if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we know it's a right angle. But we're going to have to figure some things out first. Okay, so circle the hypotenuse, the biggest number. Okay, here's my hypotenuse. So I finished step 1. Does the leg squared equal the hypotenuse squared? Well, I'm not too sure, so let's see if we can figure this out. So we'll go 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. Okay, well, I know 6 squared is 36, and I know 8 squared is 64. Okay, so c squared. And actually, I do know what c squared is, right? So c is 10 squared, so we'll put that in there. 36 plus 64 is 100. And then I need to figure out what is 10 squared. That is also 100. So 100 equals 100. Are they equal? Then yes, it is a right triangle. So yes, it is a right triangle. You're going to do that with these next 3 problems. So do the side lengths below belong in a right triangle. Show your work to justify your answer. So show your work to justify your answer. I don't want to see yes, no. You need to show me. You're going to follow each of these steps. So you need to circle the hypotenuse. You're going to do the work to solve it here. That way I can see your thinking, okay? And then you're going to decide if it's a right triangle. So yes, it is. No, it is not. Okay? Let's move on to this next section. Finding sides of right triangles. So sometimes we have the length of both sides. Sometimes we have a leg and a hypotenuse. So we need to figure out what do we know and what do we still need to figure out. So here's the steps. First, you're going to label the legs, so A and B, and the hypotenuse. Which is going to be C. You're going to draw an arrow across from the right angle and circle the missing side. Okay, so let's just do that really quick. So I'm going to label this one. We'll say that, let's label this one A and B. It doesn't matter when you're labeling your legs. If you chose to label this one A and this one B, and I chose to label this one A and this one B, it's not going to make a difference because we're adding them, right? So it doesn't matter which side we add, it's still going to get the same answer, right? And then this is going to be my C. So then it says draw an arrow across from the right angle, okay, and circle the missing side. My missing side is C. So I know that this is my hypotenuse because remember from the first side it tells me that my hypotenuse is always going to be directly across from the right angle. Okay, so step 2, we're going to substitute the known values into the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem. Using a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then, after we do that, we're going to solve for the missing side. And then decide if you're adding or subtracting. So don't forget to take the square root. Okay, so we already started example 1, so let's look a little bit further into this one. So I'm going to say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. Equals c squared. 9 plus 16 is 25. So now, okay, I have that part, but let's make sure we know what we're doing. So we're solving for the missing side, so we have to decide if we're adding or subtracting, which we did. We added together because we're solving for the C, the hypotenuse. But don't forget to take the square root. Okay, because C is squared, I can't say 25 or C equals 25. I have to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to square root both sides. The square root of 25 is going to be 5, right? Because the square root is just a number squared. So 5 equals C. Okay, so there's my answer. C equals 5. Let's try this one. Okay, so I'm going to label my sides. This is my A. We're going to say that this is my B and this is my C. I'm going to draw an arrow across from the right angle. I'm going to circle the missing side, which happens to be this one. Substitute in the known values for in the Pythagorean theorem. Because I have C, I'm actually going to go 10 squared minus 6 squared equals B squared. Because I'm looking for a side, I'm going to take this, because these two, adding these together equal that. So if I take this and subtract it by that, I will be able to figure out what's missing. So 10 squared is 100, 6 squared is 36, and then 100 minus 36 is 64, equals B squared. Well, I have to square both sides, so I'm going to go the square root of both sides. So B equals 64. The square root of 64 is 8. Okay, so you are going to try these problems here. So follow the same exact steps. Label your legs and your hypotenuse. Draw an arrow across from the right angle. Circle the missing side. Substitute the known values in. Solve for the missing side. Decide if you're adding or subtracting, and don't forget to take the square root. Okay, so try those. If you have any problems, you definitely can come see me. We can talk through anything that you may not understand. Okay, so we're still not done, believe it or not. This is only one side, so you're getting close. So this is when you're finding a length of a three-dimensional figure. So similar, we're going to label the legs, A and B, and the hypotenuse, C. You're going to substitute the known values into the Pythagorean theorem. Using A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You're going to solve for the missing side, and don't forget to take the square root. Okay, so let's look at our example here. This looks like it's confusing, right? But we're just going to use the information we have here in our right triangle. So I'm going to label my sides. This is going to be my A, B, C. And so 4.8 squared plus 3.6 squared equals C squared. And then I'm going to go 4.8 is 23.04 plus 3.6, which is 12.96, equals C squared. And then these two together make 36 equals C squared. Now I need to square it. I need to do the square root of both sides, right? So square root of both sides. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of C squared is C. So my answer is C equals 6. So you're going to try those for all of these. Just find your right triangle and solve just like you did with the last ones. It's just using the three-dimensional figures, but it looks more confusing than it is. Okay, so then our last section is finding the distance in a coordinate plane. First step, you need to plot the points in a coordinate plane. Your second step is to draw a right triangle with a hypotenuse that represents distance between the points. Substitute the known values into the Pythagorean theorem. Using the formula A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and solve for the length of the hypotenuse. Okay, so let me show you a real quick example here. So I'm going to take, this is 8 units because I plotted my points. So that from here to here is 8 units. So I'm going to do 8 squared plus, so A, B, C, plus 6 squared equals C squared. 8 squared is 64, plus 6 squared was 36. That is 100. Square both sides. 100 squared is 10, so C equals 10. So I plotted, to find the distance between -2 and 5 and 4 and -3, I had to go -2 up 5, plotted that point. Then I went 4 down 3, plotted that point. Then I made a right triangle from those points, and that's how I got my 8 units and 6 units. And then I had to solve for C. You're going to try these 2 problems down here and see if you can get those. Have a great day.